In this video, you're going to learn the basics of AFK farming in Granblue Fantasy Relink. This is also going to be a companion video for a much more in-depth endgame guide I'm going to be working on, so if you don't want to miss out on that, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so that you'll be notified when that video goes live. Also, if you get any valuable piece of information out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button as well. Thank you very much for doing that, and let's get started. So if you're setting up to do some AFK farming, one of the first things that you'll want to do is open up the main menu and then go to System and then go to Game Options. Now in here there's a couple of options that I would recommend you guys to change, such as Assist Mode. I would recommend you do Full Assist Mode because in the event that you're farming something of extreme difficulty or below, your character will actually attack anything that comes within its range. And also if you're farming those quests in that difficulty, I would recommend you playing a ranged character, because that way whenever enemies come within the range of your ranged attacks, your character will automatically begin attacking them and it will be a more efficient farm that way. But turning on Assist Mode basically will let your character attack anything that it comes into contact with if you are farming anything extreme and below. But you can also farm quests of Maniac difficulty and Proud difficulty. However, those are going to take a little bit longer for you to farm out the sigils and really grind out the different characters in your party. So it's okay to stay in these earlier difficulties for your first beginning grind sessions, because there's also a lot of materials you'll want to be getting out of those difficulties. Now, beyond that, another thing that you want to do is change the Skybound art activation to immediately. Now, the reason you'll want to do that is because if you save for a full burst, that means your NPCs are not going to be doing their Skybound arts as often as they can, which this is going to be one of the ways in which they'll be able to CC the boss and also deal pretty decent bursts of damage along the way. So you'll want to change this for immediately, and then you can change it back to full burst whenever you're manually playing the game. But these would be two settings that I would definitely recommend you changing if you're going to be getting involved in AFK farming. The next step is going to be to choose which characters you're going to be focusing on for your AFK farm. While in the initial difficulties, this is not the most important thing because most characters can do just fine for AFK farming. Once you start getting into the Maniac and Proud difficulties, the characters that you choose are going to become a little bit more important. Now, for the most part, most characters can do a pretty okay-ish job at AFK farming. Usually, characters that might suffer a little bit more are characters that are required to sit still and charge a big hit before they hit the boss, because the main means of defense that NPC AIs are going to be using is going to be perfect dodging. And because of that, if they're trying to charge a big hit and then they have to perfect dodge, they can get stuck in loops where they're just trying to charge that big hit and then perfect dodging and then trying to charge it again and perfect dodging and then never actually get that hit off. Because the harder the quests are going to be, the more often the bosses are going to throw attacks at you, and AIs are not adept at dealing with that if they also have to sit still and charge attacks. Now, having said that, like I said, there might be builds that you'll be able to do. You should experiment and do all of that stuff. But if you want characters that I can tell you kind of work really well, I can give you a couple of tips that I have from both me and my friends playing through the game. We're not really looking up any particular tier lists or anything like that. This is just, okay, we tried out these characters. These are some of the characters that we would recommend. So the first one is going to be Eugen. Eugen is just super solid all around. He's a fantastic character to play. He happens to be my favorite character in the game. I love playing Eugen, and he's just a super solid NPC. Like, even when I was playing actively in some of the quests back in the PlayStation 5 days, Eugen was still getting MVP even if he was being played by NPCs. Eugen is just like really powerful. So he's one of the characters that you might want to consider adding to your roster. Just super solid all around. Another really solid character is Zeta. Now, the thing about Zeta is, in order for her to be a really good party NPC, one of the things that you want to do is remove all of her skills. You can also play her with her skills activated, but she seems to perform way better if you take away all of her skills, because she's just really good at doing her air loop over and over and over again, and that makes her extremely consistent. Also, if you take away all of your skills, you get to build her with the less is more sigil, which increases her damage depending on the number of skills that she has activated. If you have no skills activated, it's like 120% more damage. So she just becomes very, very consistent at doing that. And like I said, the NPCs are pretty good at perfect dodging, so she's just going to go up to a boss, spam her aerial loop, and then perfect dodge most of the attacks and going back to spamming her aerial loop. So Zeta is also a very efficient character to have in your party. Another character, potentially one of the best support characters to have in your party, is going to be Cagliostro. At least I personally have seen this character be really, really useful, especially if you're just starting out with AFK farming, because you can kit her out to be a support character that can remove debuffs from you, she can heal you, she can revive you, and she's just going to be all around a really good help in those early quests. For some of the later quests, you might want to change that around, but for the early quests, she's really, really good. I'm still running quests on Proud with her, and she's also still performing really well. But yeah, those are like the three big ones for early playing through the game. I was thinking about potentially recommending Rackham just because he's a reasonably okay-ish ranged character, but Rackham is just not really the best, and while he can be useful for some quests, I'm not exactly sure I'd recommend them, but I figured I would recommend 4 characters in case your main character is not included in here. And speaking of your main character, you should always use your main character in these quests because you're going to be min-maxing him anyways, him or her. You're going to be min-maxing them anyways for, you know, performance and all of that stuff, so just having them in your party is naturally going to be a boon. So those would be my recommendations as to which characters you'll want to choose for AFK farming and all of that stuff. Once you start getting into the later levels, like once you start getting to Behemoth and so on and so forth, one of the best characters to add to your party is going to be Twayan. Twayan just absolutely wrecks. She might be one of the most powerful characters that NPC AIs can control from what me and my friends have experienced, because I haven't even built her up. She's actually the next character I'm going to be building up, but like with my friends, they're just saying like, bro, she's doing 20 million score, she's obliterating everything, she's an absolute killer AI. So Twayan is likely one of the best ones, so that will be one of the ones that you'll want to focus on once you get to the Behemoth fight and really deck her out. Once you have your character selected, you'll want to come over to the party menu, and when you get there, you'll want to hit the back button on your controller, and this is going to allow you to have access to party sets. You'll want to save your current set because this would be the set that you're normally using for leveling up, doing quests, and all of that good stuff. So before you actually change anything, save the set that you're currently using so that you can easily return to it when you want to actually play the game. So we're going to be doing a save here on party set 5, boom. So that is going to save your current set the way that it is, and then you can go back and reload that loadout so that you can just keep on playing. But once you do that, you can go ahead and do some changes to your party's gear and actually equip them in a way that is going to be beneficial for you. So for instance, if we look at my Eugen, I'm not saying that this is the most optimal setup that you can have for your Eugen. Naturally, you're going to want to have your Terminus weapon. I will go in depth as to what Terminus weapons are and all of that stuff in the next guide video that I'm going to be working on, but you'll want to have a bunch of damage sigils on him. You want to make sure that he is dealing out as much damage as you possibly can. So you'll want to increase his damage cap. And I know my sigils aren't like fully leveled up. This is a little bit of a fresh save that I've been working on because I made the move from PlayStation 5 to PC, so I'm still missing on a lot of materials. There's still a lot of grinding left to do, but I still wanted to get this out there for those of you that are, you know, coming up to the game right now and thinking about doing this this type of AFK farm and all that good stuff. But naturally, you'll want to do some damage caps because usually I keep at least 4 damage caps on every character because that's usually what you want to have once you upgrade those sigils and all of that good stuff. But, you know, 4 damage caps and just give them as much damage as you possibly can, depending on the sigils that you have available to you. So like critical hit rate up until you get to 100% is obviously good. Attack is good, but that's not really your biggest priority. I'd recommend Tyranny. Tyranny is very good, even though it reduces their HP. But the thing is, NPCs are usually pretty good about dodging attacks. Like I said, they're pretty good about perfect dodging. So you can just like stack stuff on them to increase as much damage as possible. We do have Link together on all the NPCs. This will make them fill up the Link charge faster so that they can do their Link attacks, which is also a bunch of damage that goes through. Very useful. Even useful to just have that even when you're playing with them in your party. Pretty good. Supplementary damage is also going to be very, very good, but these are going to be very rare early on, so you'll likely not have them. Berserker Echo, if you're above, I believe, 25,000. Yeah, if your attack is above 25,000, Berserker Echo is going to deal supplementary damage. It's pretty good. Glass Cannon, because like I said, a lot of the times these characters are not going to be getting hit, so they can just be wearing Glass Cannon. Naturally, War Elemental, big deal. Auto Revive, also very, very useful if you manage to squeeze that into the characters. So that's usually the way that things go. Something that I would usually recommend as well is Nimble Onslaught. Now, I don't have it in Eugen because I've been messing with these setups and whatnot, but if you actually go to Zeta, you will see that I do have Nimble Onslaught on one of these sigils. Nimble Onslaught, because like I said, they do a lot of perfect dodging. This fills up their SBA gauge faster, and like I told you guys in the beginning, if you turn on SBA as soon as you can, that's going to CC the boss. That's going to deal additional damage to the boss. It's just going to be pretty good all around. Tyranny, once again, coming in. In the case of Zeta specifically, you'll want less is more if you are playing her like I am, which is take all the skills away, give her a bunch of less is more. She's going to deal tons damage. Glass Cannon, all of that good stuff linked together. Critical hit rate, War Elemental, of course. In the case of Cagliostro, we also have our Founder's Warpath and Founder's Awakening. You'll want to actually see which Warpaths and Awakening are going to work based on the NPC AI, because like I told you, a lot of the stuff that they do is perfect dodging. They are not too fond on charging big attacks, depending on the character, but, you know, you'll have to see. So, for instance, I think that her Awakening actually has a skill that's not super amazing in the case of Cagliostro, which is whenever she lands a fully charged collapse. I don't really see her do that very often, if at all. So, yeah, this one not super impressive, but reducing her skill cooldowns is pretty good because she has a Resurrection, she also has a heal, has all that good stuff. So, I just use her Awakening for Founder's Truth more than anything. And a Warpath also seems to be pretty decent because she does perform combo finishers. She gets enhanced damage. It's all pretty good stuff. Linked together, Tyranny, Glass Cannon. I put Stun Power on her because it comes with Nimble Onslaught, so that's pretty good. War Elemental, the damage caps. You guys know the drill, but pretty much try to squeeze out as much damage as you can with whatever sigils you have available to you. If you manage to put in a Nimble Onslaught in there, that's also pretty good. If you manage to fully upgrade their HP weapon so that they'll be at least above 30,000 health, that's also pretty good so that they can survive a hit if they happen to take one instead of dying. But that's also the reason why I personally like playing with Cagliostro, because he can just like resurrect. Now, for your main character, if you're doing extreme quests and lower, you can have them just also have a bunch of DPS stuff on them and have them be a ranged character, and they'll participate and help out. And usually in extreme quests, you're likely not going to die. But if you're farming some maniac quests and some proud quests that are going to be a little bit more challenging, you'll want to build them up as a tank. Now, having the Terminus weapon for this is very good because it already comes with 15 points of regen. Not to mention, it's going to be the weapon that you're going to be upgrading the most anyway. But if you don't have a Terminus weapon yet, you'll want to use maybe their HP weapon because it'll make it easier for you to cap their HP. That would be my recommendation anyway. But yeah, you'll see that I do have some damage skills on here because sometimes I'll play the character as tanky for the setup of the quest, and usually you don't need all of the slots for setting up the character for tanking. But so you have some slots left over. However, this particular tank is not fully maxed out. There's still some stuff that I'm missing, like Crabvestment Returns, which I'll talk about shortly. But the idea here is you'll want to cap out your HP. So this is why we're getting a bunch of Aegis, Greater Aegis, HP. Just play with it until you get to 99,999 HP, okay? You start stacking Aegis, Greater Aegis, and effective HP, and all of this stuff. Eventually you're going to get to 99,999. After you do that, one of the things you'll want to get, if you can do it, is get Potion Hoarder. So we have a Potion Hoarder with a health sigil in here. Potion Hoarder is going to be useful because you're also going to be getting Auto Potion. So what does Auto Potion does? It automatically heals your character whenever you get to a certain HP threshold, but it only uses the small potions. It doesn't use the big ones, but it's a little bit more time that your character stays up without needing the NPCs to come and res him. Because what you want to do here is you want the tanking character to just stay up, take up all the damage that it needs to, without the NPCs having to stop attacking the boss to come and res you up because you've gone critical. So Auto Potion is very useful for that. Another thing that is useful is Auto Revive, which I also believe I have in this character somewhere. Let me see here. Where do I have? Oh, I have it on the weapon. I put a thing on it that has auto revive and guts. So this is also very useful to have on your tanking character because if he dies, he gets back up. There's a chance to survive when, and stay at 1 HP. And then your regen will kick in, which is another very important thing that you need to cap. You need to cap out your regen because if you're at 99,999 health and you have max out regen, you're going to be getting healed for 5,000 HP every couple of seconds. So that's pretty friggin' good, naturally, as you can imagine. So you're constantly just healing. You have tons of health to survive pretty much everything the boss throws at you. You have auto revive, you have guts, and at the end of the day, you still have Cagliostro in your party. So if all of those things go through, and if you're using Cagliostro, he'll just res you from afar as well. I believe the captain also has that specific ability, but I haven't messed with the captain all that much because it's not a character that I really enjoy playing, and I don't know how effective it is with AFK farming. But, those are some of the things that you can do. Now, on top of that, you can also get Stout Heart combined with Steel Nerves. What is that going to do? So Stout Heart makes it so that your character does not get staggered whenever you get hit. This is actually a really good sigil in general to just have. So your character basically will not get staggered. But on top of it, if you then combine that with Steel Nerves, whenever Stout Heart is active, you're taking less damage. So in this case, I'm only cutting down 11% because I still have, like I said, I haven't upgraded these sigils yet. Fresh save, yada, 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 but you'll be able to take that all the way up to 15%, which is pretty friggin' good. So you basically just reduce damage by 15%. Editing Ruri, I just noticed that I didn't show you guys how to get Stout Heart and Auto Potion. In case you guys aren't aware of how to get that, you can come up to Sierra Carte, you go to Treasure Trade, you scroll over to Sigils, and then you just start scrolling down, and eventually you're going to reach into Auto Potion any second here. There it is, Auto Potion. It's going to require those materials, but you can use AFK Farming for farming most of those things. Just choose whichever ones you're missing, and then, go to the quest log, start doing the quest that you need to do to get them. And then a little bit below that, you will find Stout Heart. Stout Heart's a little bit more challenging, but still, depending on the level that you have your team at, after you do a couple of runs of AFK farming, you should be able to get them to AFK farm all of this stuff for you as well. Then there's also another sigil called Crabvestment Returns. Now, Crabvestment Returns is going to require significant time investment to get. Well, I say significant time investment. It's going to need you to find all of the crabs that you're supposed to find in the main story. But once you finish the main story, they actually just straight up show up in your map. So for instance, if we go over here on chapter 2, I already have, you can see right there that I have 7 out of 7 of the crabs. But if we go to chapter 3, you'll notice we're at 2 out of 3 of the crabs in the Mines of Tempeal. And you're like, oh, so you need to go through this thing and find all the crabs. That's going to be really annoying. No, because the crabs straight up show up in your map. So if we go through this chapter, I can very quickly show you what it looks like. So we're just going to jump in chapter 3, Creations of the Stars, and you'll want to do all of this. We're doing it in Ultimate. I actually don't even remember what the reward is for doing stuff in Ultimate, but that's another thing that you might want to do in the future. But just for getting Crabvestment Returns, you can come up to each of these chapters, and you'll notice that you can open up your map by holding down on the right stick. And if we advance just a little bit, you will see on the top left-hand corner, there's a crab icon there. That means there's going to be a little crabby boy up ahead, and you can just go ahead and collect it. So it's just a matter of going through the game, picking up all of these crabs, and then turning in the quest. Should be here. You're going to pick them up. Boom. Then after you do that, you can actually quit the chapter. So long as you pick them up, you can just straight up quit the chapter. It'll still count for you picking them up. If you actually notice here, we go to the quest counter. You'll notice that the one that I just picked up, which was in chapter 3, if you remember, it said that I was missing one in chapter 3, is now counts as you having picked it up. And then after you do that, you'll want to go, after you pick all of them up, that is, you'll want to go to Folka, because in Folka is where the NPC is that you have to deliver all of the crabs to. The NPC is going to be around here, close to the river. Right there. This is the dude for the crabs quest. So you just come in here, talk with him. Probably you'll have to speak with him more than once because you're supposed to be catching these as you go through the thing. So as you can see, I already have a couple of these to turn in. He's going to give you all these rewards, and then eventually when you deliver all of the little crab dudes, he's going to give you Crabvestment Returns, which is going to be additional damage reduction for your tank. So finally, after you set up your party for AFK farming, you've done all the stuff that I mentioned in the options, you've selected the party, you've optimized their damage sigils to the best of your ability. What exactly do you have to do? Well, you go to the quest counter, you choose a quest that you want to go and do based on the materials that you need. Like, let's say, for instance, something that people often need is Fortitude Crystals. So one of the best ones for Fortitude Crystals is going to be this one, Gulp. So these are the rumored monsters. This is a very good quest for you to go and do. You can AFK it, and you get lots and lots of the Fortitude Crystals. So you can just go Undertake Quest Closed. We're going to set out on this quest. Usually for this particular quest, I would have a ranged character as the player character because you don't really need a tank for this quest, but I don't really feel like changing my party around, so we'll just let it be. And you just have to sit here. This quest lasts for about 4 minutes. Just let your party take care of business. They're going to start murdering stuff. I'm going to let this play out and just come back at the end once we get the rewards. So once you clear the quest, you're going to be taken to the quest screen as per usual, where you get to see all of the rewards and all of that good stuff. And as you guys will see, for this specific quest, we got like 33 Fortitude Crystal M's, 20 Fortitude Crystal Larges, another 15 from side goals, and a couple of more crystals here, which is a pretty good haul as far as I'm concerned, especially considering that you're essentially AFK. So what you do after you've completed the quest the first time in order to set up the AFK farm is you just press on square or X on your controller, or 3 if you happen to be on the default PC settings. And that is going to toggle that little setting over there on the lower left-hand side. And then you can just, tell the game to go ahead and repeat the quest. And once the game starts repeating the quest, it will repeat this quest 10 times. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, there's no way to repeat a quest more than 10 times. So, after 10 times of doing this quest, you're expected to come back here and set up the farm again. That's just something that the developers did to prevent players from infinitely farming everything, but they still allow you to farm stuff 10 quests at a time. So, it is what it is. But that is kind of like the basics of AFK farming in Granblue Fantasy Relink. As a final tip for this video, once you start AFK farming for the purpose of upgrading your terminus weapons and the like, one of the first bottlenecks you're going to be running into is going to be silver centrums. So the best way of farming silver centrums early on is to repeat Death, Taxes, and Goblins, as well as Golemology 103. The reasoning behind that is because the materials that you can get from these quests, like for instance the Broken Savage Sword, as well as the Crowning Parapet, these are 2 materials that you can exchange for Silver Centrum, but also you can get Silver Centrums naturally by just completing these 2 quests. So you would be doing 10 runs of Death, Taxes, and Goblins, then 10 runs of Golemology, then 10 runs of Death, Taxes, and Goblins, repeat, and, until you get as many materials as you want. Then you can come up to Sierra Carte, and if we go to Treasure Trade and just scroll from the bottom up, you'll see that we have the Silver Centrums here for Broken Savage Sword and Crowning Parapet. 12 of each of those is going to give you a Silver Centrum on top of the Silver Centrums that you're going to be getting naturally from just completing the quest. So that's one of the more efficient ways of doing things. But anyways, that is going to be it for this video. Stay tuned for the next endgame guide that I'm going to be doing for Granblue Fantasy Relink to prepare you for Endless Ragnarok in July 9th. Subscribe, bell notification icon, all of that jazz. Hit the like button if this was useful for you in any way, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.